Every winter, Appalachian mountain families walked out with rakes and pitchforks and did something to their houses that would look strange to anyone watching today. They piled leaves, straw, and pine boughs against the foundation of the cabin, all the way around, several feet deep. Then they packed it down and left it there until spring. They called it banking. It cut the heat loss through the foundation nearly in half, and it cost nothing. And it's just one of a set of small mountain habits that together turned a drafty log cabin into a house that could hold a wood stove fire's worth of heat through the coldest nights of the year. Here's the mountain trick. Actually, the collection of small tricks that made the difference between a warm cabin and a cold one. Start with banking, because it's the one you've probably never heard of. Heat leaves a house in three main directions: up through the ceiling, out through the walls, and, this is the part that gets forgotten, down through the floor and out through the foundation. In a modern insulated house, floor and foundation loss is a modest share of total heat loss. In an old cabin with a raised floor over a crawl space, it was often the single biggest leak. The mountain families understood this at a practical level. The floor was cold in winter because cold air was pouring in under it, so they addressed it directly. In late fall, after the leaves fell, the family would rake up mountains of dry leaves, gather straw from any thresh they'd done, and cut pine and spruce boughs from the woods. All of this went into a thick, packed pile against the foundation of the house, sometimes 2 or 3 feet deep, completely encircling the building. That pile of organic matter did 3 things at once. It broke the wind, so cold air wasn't blowing directly against the foundation and the floor joists. It provided insulation. Trapped air in the pile of leaves and boughs is a real insulator. Not as good as modern foam, but genuinely effective. And as the pile slowly composted through the winter, it produced a small amount of warmth of its own. A banked cabin, in the mountain family's experience, ran noticeably warmer inside than an unbanked one, using less firewood to hold the same temperature. The heat loss reduction wasn't magic. It was straightforward physics, applied thoroughly to a specific weakness in the building. The second mountain habit was chinking, and this one is more familiar. A log cabin isn't built of solid walls. It's built of stacked logs with gaps between them. In the original construction, those gaps were filled, chinked, with a mixture of clay, sand, straw, and sometimes horsehair or hog hair for reinforcement. That chinking dried into a hard, weather-resistant seal that closed every gap between logs. The problem was that chinking cracked. The logs shifted, the house settled. The temperature swings between summer and winter pulled the chinking apart in tiny places. So every fall, before winter set in, the mountain family walked the outside of the house with a small trowel and a bucket of fresh chinking mix, and repaired every crack they could find. Every gap sealed was a place cold air couldn't get in and warm air couldn't get out. Modern houses aren't built of logs, but the same principle applies. Every fall, walk the outside of your house with a tube of caulk and look for gaps. Every crack around a window frame, every gap where trim meets siding, every place a pipe or wire enters the house. Those are your modern chinks. Sealing them makes as real a difference in a 2024 house as it did in a 1924 cabin. If this is the kind of mountain knowledge you want more of, our free Appalachian Almanac goes out every Sunday. One real method, sourced and tested, in your inbox. Links in the description. Now, the other pieces of the mountain heat loss puzzle. The third habit was inside the house. Heavy curtains, thick rugs, and a room closing discipline. A single-pane window is a huge source of heat loss. The mountain families didn't have double glazing, so they compensated with heavy curtains, thick wool blankets tacked over windows at night, then rolled up in the morning to let sun in. Modern insulated curtains are the descendants of exactly this idea, and they work for exactly the same reason. They trap a layer of still air between the window and the room, dramatically reducing conductive heat loss through the glass. Rugs on the floor did the same job for the floor. A bare wood floor loses heat to the crawl space below constantly. A rug, especially a thick braided rag rug of the kind mountain families made from worn-out clothing, is a layer of trapped air between your feet and the cold, and it does real work. And the third piece, the mountain families didn't try to heat the whole house. They heated the room the family was in. Interior doors were kept closed. Rooms not being used were let go cold. The wood stove or hearth in the main room warmed that room, and, sometimes, 1 or 2 rooms adjacent to it. The rest of the house was closed off from the heating source and let drift down to whatever temperature the outside determined. Modern central heating fights this instinct. We heat the whole house to the same temperature, regardless of which rooms we're using. That's expensive and, from a mountain family perspective, wasteful. Closing off and used rooms, even in a modern house, and letting them go cold saves real money on the heating bill. The fourth mountain habit was the storm porch or vestibule. Nearly every well-built old cabin had a small enclosed porch or entryway between the main door and the outdoors. You walked in from the cold, closed the outer door behind you, and then opened the inner door into the warm house. That double door arrangement meant that when someone came in or out, cold air only reached the small vestibule, not the main living space. It was an airlock, the same idea used on submarines and spacecraft, worked out by mountain builders a century before we needed it in space. Modern houses have mostly lost this feature. The front door opens directly into the living room, and every time someone comes home in winter, a rush of cold air blasts across the room. If you have an unheated garage that opens into the house, that entryway is already a de facto vestibule and worth using deliberately. If you don't, a heavy inner curtain or a room divider between the front door and the main living area recovers some of the effect. Now, the honest caveats, because this whole video is about a specific mountain climate and a specific kind of house. Banking a modern house isn't a great idea. Modern foundations rely on being able to dry out. Piling wet leaves against them can trap moisture and encourage rot or mold. If you want the banking effect in a modern house, use a proper skirting or foam foundation insulation. The principle is the same, but the material matters. Chinking and caulking still work everywhere. This is the easiest, cheapest heat loss reduction you can do to any house, and it's worth doing every fall. Heavy curtains work everywhere. Rugs work everywhere. Closing off and used rooms works everywhere. The vestibule effect works everywhere, and it's genuinely worth thinking about how to build one into your daily use of the house. And the mountain principle underlying all of it, take heat loss seriously as a system and address every leak, is the honest lesson for any house in any climate. A modern house's heat loss is almost never one big hole. It's 100 small ones. The mountain families didn't have the luxury of one big-ticket fix. They solved the problem by addressing every leak they could find. Banking the foundation, chinking the walls, curtaining the windows, rugs on the floor, closing the doors of unused rooms, building an airlock at the entrance. Each of those saved a small amount of heat. Together, they cut the heating bill nearly in half. We look for the big single fix. Better insulation, a new furnace, a heat pump. Those matter too. But the mountain approach, many small habits, each one worthwhile, added up over a winter, is what actually makes a warm house on a working family's budget. The physics of foundation heat loss, the historical references on Appalachian banking, and a fall home ceiling checklist are all linked in the description. If you want all of these methods in one place, the Appalachian Way Field Guide has 47 of them with the original sources behind each one. Link below. Real methods, real sources, real history. That's the Appalachian Way. We'll see you Wednesday.